So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself to you all first. So my name is 𝐑𝐨𝐥𝐞-𝐁𝐚𝐬𝐞𝐝, and I've been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. So let's get started. So our main purpose of joining this session is to discuss on HTML and CSS, how they are used for the web development, and then where we are going to start from scratch, just seeing how exactly we can design the entire solution and how the HTML and CSS are used as the main drivers for web development. So the main agenda for today's session, we are going to discuss on what exactly is HTML. Then we are going to discuss on what exactly is CSS. Then we are going to see how we can create a website by using these components. So first of all, let's understand what exactly is HTML. So when we talk about HTML, then HTML is basically the building block for any website. So if you talk about any website, then any website is built on three main core technologies. If you talk about static website, first of all, we have HTML. So HTML is the building block for any element. For example, if we are placing a form on the page, if we are working on building up a form on the page, so how the form is going to look, that means what all elements are going to be present in that form. Suppose we are taking we want to apply a header section, right? We want to apply a header. We want to take inputs in the format of text boxes, in the format of email addresses. We want to take input for passwords. We want to give them multiple checkboxes to select. We also want to give them multiple radio buttons to choose as well, right? And then they can click on submit. So all of these elements, that means the entire content, whether we talk about a simple horizontal line to all the text, all the input boxes, all the images, everything, whatever we see on the website, that is the result of the HTML content. That is a result of HTML. So HTML is what? HTML is the hypertext markup language, which helps us in building the entire content that we are seeing on the pages. And then for beautifying all of these elements, that means how the form elements have to look like, how they are going to look like, that is given to us by CSS. CSS refers to cascading style sheet, cascading style sheet, and then the functionality of it. That means suppose if we click on submit, then we have to submit the details of the form, and then we have to update it in the browser, in the database. What all data or what kind of content should be displayed once they click on submit. So all of these functionalities, every functionality that we see on the pages, that is given to us by JS. JS refers to JavaScript. And that's why any static website, it's a combination of these three. HTML for defining the content that we have, CSS for beautifying them, for adding the styling components, and then JS for adding the functionality part, as in JavaScript. Just like we have our human body, the entire structure is defined by a skeleton, that's HTML. The entire skin and the entire structure that's given to us by CSS for beautifying of the body. And then the entire functionality, that means how exactly the body has to function, that is given to us by JS. So these three are the core components for any static website. All right. So that's why these three are considered as the backbone for any web application. So HTML, as we had discussed, HTML defines what all elements are going to be present. So HTML refers to hypertext markup language, and it defines which all elements are going to be available in the web page. CSS simply defines the styling of any page. So let's see how we can create a one web page by using any of the editor. So there are multiple editors available in the market. We can use any of the editors, whichever we are comfortable with. One of the most popular editors are Notepad++. So we can make use of Notepad++, which is available for Windows. If you're using Windows-based system, then you can make use of this Notepad++. So this is how it basically looks like. So we can say the updated version for Notepad, and then we can simply start working on each and every code aspect, as we can see here. If you're using iOS, we can either use Visual Studio Code, or we can also use Sublime Text. So here we can make use of this tool. This is available for both, for Windows and iOS both. Here you go. And if you are comfortable with Visual Studio Code, then you can also download this as well. And these all core editors are free of cost, so there are no licensing involved here for Notepad, for Visual Studio Code, or for Sublime Text. We can use any of these. So we have shown you the Notepad++. So this is how the Sublime Text also looks like. so we can work on the entire Sublime Text Editor that we can get used to get started. So there's no main difference here. So it all comes down to our own comfort level. We can choose, we can simply create that based on the requirement. So now we are going to use the Sublime Text Editor for building a code. So first of all, we are going to save the file. Now the extensions that we use for saving and for working or any of the objects, we are going to use the extensions such as dot, or we can use the extension such as home.html. And all the objects for any file, we are simply recommend to store that as a part of one folder altogether. So here we can create a folder, and let's say inside this folder we can name the file as suppose home.html, and then we can get started. So now here we can start by adding. Now every HTML document starts with HTML tag. So every HTML document starts with HTML tag, and every tag also has opening and closing tag in HTML. So we have seen there are multiple core editors that we can make use of. We can use Sublime Text, we can use Visual Studio Code, or we can use any of the editors we got. All right. So every document starts with the HTML tag. So here we can start with HTML, and here we can open a head section, and then under head section we can give a title. So let's say we want to give a title as home for Edureka that we are going to create. We can close the title here. So here we start with HTML, then we are placing a head section, and then we are closing the head tag. So as you can see, every tag here needs to be opened and closed as well. Then only it is going to be treated like a complete tag altogether. So for opening a tag, we only have to use, now these all are what? These all are different elements available in HTML. Like we have HTML head and title. So here we are opening the entire title, and then we are closing it as well, right? So now once we have opened the title here, now for closing the title, we have to make use of this / and then the same tag that we open. Now, once we are done, now we want to place title inside the head tag. So head is basically like a common section for about the entire website. So head section is basically used to define the meta tags for, like we have meta keywords, description. If we want to link, if you want to load a style sheet along with the document, then we can mention it in the head tag. If you want to load a JavaScript file before the entire elements of the page loads, then we can mention it in the head section, and so on. All right. So these all components have to be mentioned here. So now next, once we are done, now we are going to work on the elements itself. So here we are going to work on adding the elements. So now once we're done with head, now we can place body. So whatever we are going to place under body, so body is the actual content. That means whatever we can see on the web page, that is generally placed inside the body itself. For example, if we open up Microsoft, so whatever we can see on Microsoft, that means from top to bottom, whatever we can see here, these all are a part of body itself. So body defines all the elements that is going to be rendered in the browser. That exactly is what we mean by body. What is the use of meta tags? So basically, let's say if we are searching for anything, for example, if we search for Edureka in Google, right? So now we can see here we are seeing multiple results. Now how these results are given by Google, by using the meta name, by the meta name and the tag that we define. The meta name tags, the meta tag for keywords, and for adding descriptions. For example, as a part of the SEO, we want to make sure that this particular page is treated. Now we can define meta name and keywords. That means suppose if anyone is searching for, suppose this page is meant for, suppose travel website, right? So here if someone is looking for travel or book hotels, book flights, if anyone is looking for these keywords, then our page should be included in the search results for these keywords, right? That exactly is what we are giving as a meta tag. Same way if we want to add a short description for the page as well, right? So here we can define the name meta tag as description, and then we can give the entire content for that description as well. Whatever we are going to, suppose buy cheap flight tickets. So this can be a short description, a simple one-liner that is going to be used by the search engines to know more about, okay, what exactly these pages, what exactly this page is all about. And that exactly is what we mean by meta tag. That means describing what is the content available on the given page. So whatever we want to show on the website, that is a part of the body tag. So you have to place the entire content inside body itself. So here we can start by now. If you want to place something in center, we can write center. And then suppose if you want to display something as h1, we have multiple header elements available here. We have from h1 to h2, h3, h4, h5, h6, depending upon how many heading we want to add, and that too at what hierarchical level we want to add as a part of the page. For example, here we can give h1. Now here we can name it as welcome to Edureka. So now, as we discussed, every tag needs to be closed as well, whatever tag we are opening up. So we have defined welcome to Edureka. So now if we save this page, for example, if we save this page for now, and let's say we try to open the same page in the browser. So here we have the page. So now this is the content that we have placed here. We have defined the title as Home Edureka, and this is the h1 element that we have placed on the page, right? Welcome to Edureka. And whatever changes we are doing here, that is going to be directly rendered in the browser because we don't need to have any kind of compiler when we are working with HTML. All right. And suppose, let's say we have multiple heading tags available. For example, we also have a close center as well as we have opened it up. Here we have multiple heading tags. So we have heading tag from H1 and this can go to H2 as well. This can go to H2. For example, here we have H2. Again, if you want to have a subheading for H2, again, we can give another header for H3. Then we can have for H4, another header, another subheader, then we can have H5. And basically it goes till H6. If we come back, we hit refresh, we can see the size and weight for each and every header reduces by using the multiple tags here. Now, for example, how exactly the heading tag is structured. So for understanding this, we can come down to our notepad so that we can understand the requirement here. Let's say we are writing an article about shoes. Top trends in shoes. Top trends in shoes. This is the main heading of a page. Just like we have in newspapers, when we are reading any newspapers, what we have a main heading of the entire newspaper, correct? And then we have short, we can say when we have small subheading for the same content. And then if we like the news, then we simply can start reading by going through the entire paragraph of that particular content. That's how it works. Same way we have small headings here for smaller news. Again, they also have multiple subheadings, correct? And now if you don't like those articles, then we can start reading about them, correct? That's how the entire newspaper is structured because we have to give the weightage. We have to give different weightage to different articles and heading as a part of the page. Same thing is going to be applied here for this page as well. So what we can do here, suppose if we are writing a blog article where the main heading is top trends in shoes. So since this is the main heading, we are going to place this under the h1 tag. Now, suppose if you are further subdividing the main header again into if we can say multiple equal components. So for example, here we are going to write the article, divide them on men and women section. So we have men and women. Now, this is what a subdivision of the main heading, correct? So, and they both are at the same level. So we are going to place them both in the same h2 tag. We are going to use the same h2 tag for both of these subheadings. Now, again, if we are going to further subcategorize men into two again subcategories, as in suppose formal and the casual shoes. Again, they both are at the same category, at the same level. So we can, but again, they are subheading for the h2. So again, they are going to be placed as h3 element, Same way for women. Again, for women also we have defined as and formal and casual. Again, they both are going to be at the same level, correct? These all elements are all at the same hierarchical level, correct? So they all are going to have h3 elements defined. Same way if you are again further categorizing casual into multiple other categories, right? Then we can define other multiple h4 elements as per the setup. At max, it can go on till h5 and at 6, not more than that. Same way we see the content in our Wikipedia. For example, if we go ahead and open up Wikipedia, we may see multiple content there, right? For example, if you're looking about India on Wikipedia, so you can see the main heading is India itself, and then we have multiple subsections. Like we have, suppose if we have history, now history is going to be the H2, and then history has been further subdivided into ancient India, then we have medieval India, then we have early modern India, and then we have modern India, correct? And then same way we have geography is going to be H2, and then these all can be categorized as per the set up as per the content that we have. Now, next we have CSS. CSS refers to cascading style sheet. So when we want to add the style sheet to the web pages, then we have to make use of the CSS part. So basically, correct, we have this type of content available on the page here. So now we want to apply a different styling to different elements. For example, let's say we have this header, we have second header, and then we have third header as JavaScript, correct? Let's remove these elements from the page for now. We have this h3. Let's add a simple line as we are learning HTML and CSS. We can save it, we can come back. This is the content that we have placed on the website yet. So we can place it, suppose, as paragraph, then we can add a paragraph tag. We can add a simple paragraph. So this is the content that we have on the page. Now, if we want to add images, say here we want to add images in the website, then for placing the images, we have certain tags as img, which is basically used to place the images. Now, let's say we want to place the image just after this entire h1 element here. All right. So what we can do, first of all, we have to look for the image. For example, let's say we look for a wide image that we want to place here. Suppose we have this image that needs to be placed here. Suppose let's say here we can save this image. Let's say we want to save this image. So here we can save this image in the same folder in which we are working on. So it's always a good practice to make sure that we are placing all the elements as in if we have multiple pages, if we have CSS pages, if we have JS pages, so we should all be placing them in the same folder in which we are working on. So let's say if we name this as slider, or we can say slider.jpg as an image. If you want, we can create a new folder for images. We can place the images under images folder and name it as slider.jpg. We can save it. That means if we come back to our folder structure, we can see here we have home.html in which we are working on, and then under images we have saved this image, right? Same way, for example, when we are working with CSS files, so it's always a good practice to place the style sheets under CSS. It's always a good practice if we are working with JavaScript files. It's always a good practice to place them in the JS folder, so that we can have a complete clean structure followed when we are working on any HTML document. All right. So now let's say we want to place this image in our document in here. So what we can do, we can come back to our editor, and let's say we want to place the image just after this one. We are learning HTML and CSS. So here we can use a tag called as img. So for placing image, we can use a tag as img space. We can define source, and then here we can define the source of the image. For example, here we can now the image that we are trying to place is where in the same root folder, but again in the images directory. So here we have to place the image as images, and then under images we have the name slide defined as slider.jpg. So here we can define slider.jpg. So we have to define the element as in tag, and then we have to define the attribute for it as in source, right? And there are some elements where we do not need to close them. So we can save it up. And if we come back to the browser, we can see the image has been placed successfully in the browser itself, what we have defined. All right. And if we are not defining any size for the given image tag, then what happens? The image is being displayed at its full size. So the image is only available in this size. This is a full size for the current image. So if we want to shrink the image, we want to make it bigger, then we have to define the size for this image itself. So for that, we have to define another attribute such as width or height, whatever we want to change here. Now, let's say we want that the width of the image should be restricted to, let's say, 350 pixels. So here we can define 350, save it. And now I can see here the image size has been shrunk down to 350. That means even it doesn't matter now if we shrink the entire container or not, the image is going to be fixed at the 350 pixel size, as you can see here. It now is fixed at 350 pixel size. And now suppose, let's say if you want that image should be responsive, as in the image width should be getting adjusted automatically as per the available size of the window, then instead of defining it as a definite pixel size, we can keep it to percentage. For example, we want that at any point of time, the width of the image should be 50% to the image to the width of the container, or suppose it should be 70% of the width. So once we save it, we come back to the browser, we hit refresh. As you can see here, now at any point of time, suppose it doesn't matter whatever the size of the window is, the image will always be 70% of the width of the entire container. That's how you simply made the entire image responsive. So it doesn't matter how large the container is, how large the window is, it is always going to cover 70% of the available size of the window, as you can see here. All right. Now, let's say we want to add a hyperlink. Next important element is hyperlink, because when we are adding a hyperlink to any other page, we are simply linking them to other pages, correct? So for example, here we have index page. Now we want to add a hyperlink, a link here, which is going to link to another page. Suppose here we can add a button. For example, in here we want to add a simple button just after this paragraph. We want to add a paragraph, or suppose we want to add a simple H4 element, and now we want to add a text as suppose visit Google's. Be a simple H4 type, visit Google. Now we want that whenever anyone clicks on this entire H4 element, they should be able to go to Google's homepage. They should be able to open up Google's homepage. And if we want to do that, again, here we have to make sure that we are linking that page. We are linking this particular text where to the Google's homepage. So what we have to do, we have to make use of something called as anchor tag. We have anchor tag. Now within the anchor tag, we have to place any element that we are going to link. And anchor tag, just like we define the source for the image, we also have to define which hyperlink we want to add to this particular text here. So here we can make use of ℏreference as an ℏreference equals to, and then here we have to specify the link that we want to hyperlink. Suppose here we want the user should be going to Google's homepage as in google.com. Google.com. So here, once we save this, if we come back, we hit refresh. Now you can see here this entire page, this hyperlink has been added to this particular text. That means now if we click on this link here, we are going to go to the Google's homepage, as you can see here. Now currently the link is being opened up in the same browser. If we want the link should be opened up in some other tab, then we only have to add another attribute to it as target underscore equals to underscore blank here. That means now if we save it, we come back, we hit refresh. Now if we click on this link here, this link is not going to be opened up in the same browser. It is going to be opened up in a new tab, itself. Not in the same tab, but in the new tab. That's how it is going to be opened up. Why? Because we have added something called as target blank. Now let's say we come down to styling. Now currently we have been placing plain HTML elements on the page. Now if you want to add styling to any of the elements, then styling is basically done by using CSS, as in cascading style sheet. So basically using CSS, we can define the style attributes for any of the element. We can add styling using three components, three methods. First of all, we have the inline style. We have something called as inline style. So now when we say inline, that means if we want to add styling to suppose to this H2 element. So here we have to add an attribute for style equals to, and then whatever styling we want to apply for only this element, that we have to specify here. For example, we want that the color for the text here should be red. We can define color, colon, the value as in red, and a semicolon to complete the statement. So we can save it. If we come back, we hit refresh. Now you can see here the second heading has been converted to a red color text. Why? Because we define the styling here for this element. So when we define styling along with the element by using the style tag, then this is referred as inline style. That means here we are giving the styling along with the element. This is called as inline style. Second method is called as internal style sheet. Now when we say internal, it simply means that instead of defining the styling here, we can erase this up. In the head section, just before closing the head tag here, we can place an element called as style. We can add the style tag here only. And whatever styling we want to be applied for the entire page for any of the elements, we can place it here. For example, we want that H2 element. Wherever we have used H2, the H2 element should be having a specific style. So here we can write H2, and under curly braces, here we have to define the style. For example, we want the color should be in red color. We can define red color, and color can be in different values. If we know some generic colors, like we have red, blue, aqua, deep pink, light red, we have aquamarine. So these all are colors having name, but we know that there are millions of shades available out there, right? So we want to add those millions of shades. So here we can make use of this kind of hex code. So for example, we want to give a specific shade of red. For example, we want to give this shade of red, this one. So here we can copy the hex value here, copy this one. And in here, we can come back, and in here, instead of red, we can specify the hash symbol and then the value that we have copied. That means this one, this 6-digit value. And here we can define the hex code here. Suppose we want to change the font family for this font family as well. So here we can define, suppose we want this to change to be font Verdana. Here we can define font family is Verdana. If we save this, we can come back to our page. If we come back, we hit refresh, we can see here the color has been changed, plus the entire font family has also been changed. Why? Because we have defined the styling here by using the internal style sheet for this particular element, as you can see here. All right. So this method is called as, when we define the style sheet, define the styling for any element by using this internal style sheet. This is called as internal styling. All right. So first of all, we had inline style. Then this method is called as internal style sheet. And then we have external style sheet. For example, if you want, we can create a new document altogether. We can save it as, let's say, style.css. And now whatever styling we want to apply here, we can apply that directly here. For example, we can cut it, and here, without specifying anything for the H2 or HTML, we can directly define the styling right away, whatever we want and however we want. Suppose let's say here we define this styling for H2. We also want to apply the styling for, let's say, for this image, for this paragraph tag. So here we can define paragraph as in P tag, and then we can open up curly braces. Suppose we want to have for paragraph, we want to have different shade of color. Let's say this color. We can copy the hex code here. We can define this color here. We want to increase the font size for paragraph. So here we can define another attribute as font size. Let's say we want to use a font size of 18 pixels. So here we can define 18 px for pixels. If we save this, if we come back to the page, this is not going to be applicable for this entire page. Why? We haven't made the changes here. Suppose if we delete the style tag from here, if you save the page, if you save the style sheet, then styling is not going to be applicable. Why? Because we have defined styling in a separate style sheet, correct? And there is no styling defined in this HTML document. That's why there is no styling applied here. Now, if we want to have this styling applied in a document, then we have to link this style sheet with our HTML document. And that method is called as external style sheet. So because here we are planning to use an external style sheet in a separate file, correct? So for linking this style sheet in a HTML document, we have same way, we have to place the link in the head section itself, in the header section itself. So here we can use a tag called as link tag. We define relation as what this is. This is for style sheet. Now, what is the type of the file we are going to add? This is going to be a text file in the format of CSS. And then we have to define the source of the file. So this file is currently located in the same folder as our HTML folder, as style.css. Suppose if this was available in here in CSS. So now because we have changed the entire styling component here, right? So now we can save it. Now the CSS file is available under CSS folder. So now we have to define the location as CSS, and under CSS we have style.css file available. And now we can close the link tag. If we save this, we come back to our page. We can hit refresh. As you can see here, whatever styling we defined in that external style sheet, it has now been applicable here. Correct? Suppose if you want to change the font style for the paragraph as well, we can apply the same font family to paragraph. If we save this, we can come back, we can hit refresh. The same thing has been applicable here. All through the concept for external style sheet as we had defined. Okay, let me show you a simple thing. Let's say we want to place a button. Let's say we convert this link to a button. Instead of text, we want to display a button here, right? So we can come back to home. Here we have visit Google, correct? So instead of this button, what we can do here, we can, instead of this text, we can place something as a button. And here we can define a class for the button, suppose as btn. We can name the button as visit Google. Now, if we save it, we come back, we refresh, we can see a plain button has been added here, right? Now we want to add a styling to this button. So what we can do here, we have defined something called as class as well. So for doing that, what we have done here, we define button. Suppose if we have multiple buttons defined here, suppose we also have button class defined as btn1, and we are adding another link as visit index page. Also, we add this link for visit Edureka. So here we can copy the button. Now we can use another anchor tag because for Edureka we want to add other page, right? So here this is going to link to Google, and here we can define hrefs, and this should be linking to suppose to Edureka's website as edureka.co, and suppose we want to link to this page. So here we can copy the link, and here we can insert this link. So now if we save the page, if we come back to the browser, now you can see we have two different links here, visit Google and visit Edureka. Here we have two different contents. We have visit Google and then we have visit Edureka, right? So now if someone clicks on this one, suppose if someone hovers over this page or over this button, then there should be some different effect. If someone hovers over this content, this button, there should be some other effect. So we can do that by adding the same thing in the styling. So here we had two different classes here because we want to apply, they both are the same element, correct? So that means if we use button, if we define the styling for button, and suppose if we define, okay, we want to have background color like this one. So if we define this one as a background color for the entire button element, so if we save it, we come back, we hit refresh, we can see both the buttons have been defined the same color, correct? And suppose if we want to remove the borders here, we can set the borders to none. As you can see here, both the pages, both the links are having the same styling, but we want to have different styling for this button and different styling for this button. So what we can do, we can make use of something called as class. So we have defined two different classes here. We have defined class button for the first button, right? And for Google, and defined the class name as button1 for Edureka button. So for button, we want to have a background color of this one. And here we can define button padding as suppose 10 pixel. And we want that whenever we hover over this button as in btn :hover, so we can add a spatial effect for button hover. We want that whenever we are hovering over the button, so you can define color for text as white. So we want that whenever we hover over the button, the background color should be changed. Background color should be changed to suppose, let's say pure black, as in 6 times 0. That's it. Nothing else should change. So here we can save it. So now if we come back, we can see this is the styling applied to this button. By default, this is having the entire styling defined. Now if we hover over this button here, as you can see here, the styling is automatically getting changed here on our hover effect. Same thing we can do for the other button as well, for Edureka. So for that, we have to define something for button1 class. So we can copy this. We can define this for button1 and button hover. So we want that whenever we hover over Edureka, we want to change the color suppose to this shade. So here we can copy this, and here we can define the same color scheme as hash and the color value. Everything should remain same, and when we hover over the button, it should be changed to black as well. So if we save it, now we come back. Now you can see both has been defined. If we hover over this button here and this one, that's how it is going to be changed as part of the styling that we currently defined. Thank you so much for being a part of this entire session, guys, and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.